Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin the Day Ghost. Just two of us tonight, not even a panel, but I'm sure we'll find a way to make this go longer than it has any right to go. We'll see what happens. But tonight, Austin and I are going to do another How We Felt About, and we're going to tell you how we felt about Transformers 1, a movie that I had no interest in whatsoever, did not plan on going to. I thought it looked just absolutely atrocious. I was embarrassed for it, looking at the trailers, and I was like, oh, that's everything that's wrong with children's entertainment. I don't want to go see that. And then Austin was like, there's that Transformers movie coming out. I'm going to go see that. And I'm like, freaking why? It looks awful. He's like, because it's Transformers. You might as well have said it's like if a Star Trek thing came out in the theater, you'd go. And you know, I'm like, I don't know why you would go to that, even being a big Transformers fan. And then Austin went, and he was like, you gotta see this movie. And I was like, seriously? So I was like, all right, fine. Just based on Austin's recommendation. And we don't line up on everything. Austin and I disagree on things all the time. But just the way he was talking about it, I was way too curious not to go and find out. And then I started hearing decent things about it from other people. And so I ended up taking two of my kids. I took Freddie and Mikey. And obviously, we'll talk about what our actual experience was with it. But yeah, Austin, this is not what I thought we would end up doing. I'm shocked we're here right now.
Well, it's funny because I've been wanting to do more things on my channel, and I was like, "There's no way Cap and I review this. I'll just do it on my channel. I'll do like a quick, brief thoughts." And I mentioned it to John, and he was like, "Oh man, I need to see your rant about how bad that movie is." And then I see it, I'm like, "Oh, like that's actually pretty good." Like I'll review it, it'll be a good one. And then you were like, oh, you know what, maybe I'll watch it. And I was like, okay, I'll just hold off at this point. I guess we are reviewing it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. So Austin is kind of our resident Transformers expert, and it's weird because it's not a thing that we've really talked about together very much on stream.
No,
I don't think we've ever done a video on Transformers.
No, it's funny. I remember you and
you're
Kareem...
in what, your fourth year on the channel now?
Yeah, no, I remember you and Kareem reviewed the Netflix show, and
I to this day can't tell you why I didn't go to you for that.
No, that's what I was going to say is, so right afterwards, you're like, oh, I watched this Transformers Netflix show. It was pretty good. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've been watching. I love Transformers. And you're like, oh, I would have had you on.
Oh, is that what happened? I thought I knew you were into Transformers, but it like slipped my mind or something.
No, it was like that was how you found out.
That's so funny.
No, and I want to do like a watch party of the G1 show because it's the 40th anniversary this year, so maybe we'll get to talk about it more. But
keep reminding me about that. We'll sneak it in somewhere. It's just doing the Rewind show on Fridays every time. It's getting a little bit tougher to get those in somewhere. But
we'll sneak it in like December. We'll get it in there.
But we'll do it. I mean, if Austin had his druthers, Transformers would count on the Superhero Rewind show, and then we would be, we still wouldn't do that because it's a TV show, but we do all the live action movies and.
Yeah, it'll be a disaster.
It would be scorched earth. Like everyone would leave.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And I mean that was part of my like curiousness with this was I also went to the last live action movie, Rise of the Beast, and I was like, here we go again. And I liked that well enough. It's not perfect, but it was fine. It was pretty good. So I'm like, maybe this one will also squeak out that level of quality.
And that I might finally look at some point because it sounded kind of fun, just at least compared to those. Mm-hmm. But this is a bit of a different animal.
Some of that Bay, like a little too much Bay energy than I would like, but like very toned down, more so in just how it's plotted, I guess.
Well, this movie is not performing great. It looks like it's gonna maybe be 86 all over again, possibly in a number of ways. I mean, we'll talk about all this later, but it's a movie that's doing really well critically, but not very well commercially, and it doesn't help that it came out the week after Beetlejuice, which was still dominating and doing really well at the box office. And a lot of people were saying after that first week, well, like it had kind of a bomb of a first weekend. It only did, I think to date, it hasn't even made its money back.
It's at 72 million so far, and it cost 75.
It
I was reading today
it
it's
cost
project.
75 allegedly, but
Oh,
there's been talk that it was actually inflated to something closer to 175. So any way you slice it with marketing and stuff, like they're not making their money back on this movie. It was a what did I read, a 60% drop for the first to the second weekend, and
63 I saw.
yeah, and somewhere in there. And what I was going to say is people were you know, the what am I trying to say? Analysts were suggesting that it could have legs, and I don't know, maybe be sort of like there was a recent Pixar movie that kind of did that. That nobody seemed to care about at first, and then ended up doing really
Yeah, it was like
well.
Elemental, I think it was
Yeah,
called.
Elemental. That was that
Yeah.
movie, and there were analysts that were suggesting that it might do pretty well after the first weekend just with word of mouth, and then it dropped 60%. It got buried, and it didn't help that DreamWorks robot movie came out the very next weekend, and that's doing pretty well, at least for what that is, and also really, really well critically. And so it seems like families that are going to the movie theater right now are seeing that instead of this, and they're just too much in the same vein. Like they're both robot movies for kids. And I
Mhm.
mean, I say same vein. They're very, very different things, but it's kind of unusual for two animated movies anywhere, 3D animated movies that you could take your 6-year-old to in at all close to the same subject matter in 2024. Like that's very unusual.
That's our version, like this new generation's version of like Ants in A Bug's Life, I guess.
Yeah,
Just, tr-
kind of.
just Transformers and Wild Robot. If only it was
Except
GoBot.
this is a pre-existing franchise. At
Yeah.
least you can respect DreamWorks for putting out something original. And I've heard nothing but great things about that. And I kind of want to take Mikey to that too. Good year for Mikey, man. He loves Transformers and he's obsessed with robot things. So, and that's
There you
being
go.
compared a lot to Iron Giant. And Mikey's a huge fan of that. He's a huge fan of Wall-E, so I really wanted to get him to the theater to see that too.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I've heard it's really good. So,
I will review that too if I get around to it, but it might be a couple weeks. That'll have more legs than this, so it'll stick in the around in the theater. I wanted to go ahead and rush out and see this in case it's gone next week, because that's entirely possible. Austin, would you give us just the briefest of synopses with this, and then we'll do sign flips, best thing, worst thing, as we always do, and spoilers, and we can get real, in the weeds, nitty gritty with this, because Austin is real into Transformers and knows his lore, and I'm sure I'll ask him lots of questions. I'm curious about how much of the lore in this is new stuff, how much of it is things we know already, what it fits with, what it contradicts, that kind of thing. And if you are watching live right now, thanks for being here. Feel free to ask us questions or give us topics related to this movie that you really want to make sure that, aspects you really want to make sure that we hit, and help direct the conversation either via super chat or as a regular comment. But if you leave a super chat, we'll make sure and talk about whatever you want us to talk about regarding this movie. And if you're watching after the fact, we appreciate you doing that as well. Austin, go ahead and give us a brief setup for what this is.
so on a cold, faraway world before the battle was raging between evil and good, there was a group of people called the Transformers. And you have kind of like a class divide where it's there's the ones that can transform and there's ones that don't have a cog that lets them transform, and they're all miners and they're mining energon, which is their life fuel. And you have Orion Pax and D16, I think
Yeah.
he's called in this. I'm a little rusty on certain details because it's been like 2 weeks, but
Yeah, sorry
so
about that. I figured this
no, it's
being your
okay.
franchise, though, you'd probably still have enough of it in your head to talk about it.
I do, but the D16 thing is new. Unless maybe it like comes from something I haven't seen, but
Can
I
I
was
ask
just
you
making
this
sure.
just real quick, and then I promise I
Yeah,
won't keep interrupting you? But
that's
because I
okay.
was just curious about this, is the PAX thing new?
No, that goes right back to G1.
Okay.
Uh, or the original Orion
This is.
Pax is just RoboCop.
Oh, okay. Well,
He's like
well,
a dock worker that Megatron tricks, and then he like beats to death, and they rebuild him as Optimus Prime.
oh, okay. So he is still who he is in this.
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, this is not my franchise. I'm as casual as it gets with Transformers, so I will ask some obvious questions for folks that really know their stuff, just so you know.
Yeah, because there's originally 3 of them. It's Ryan Pax, and I forget the other 2. But the girl that's in it becomes Alita 1, while we just have Alita 1 here.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Ironhide. But anyways.
Ironhide.
Ironhide. Katie Yeager.
Katie Yeager. Cliff Jumper.
So many good names.
That you only want to say in that voice.
No, exactly.
And once he says that, it's just stuck in my brain forever. Ratchet. Like...
so Ryan Pax, he's a miner that
Shockwave. I can't stop doing it.
Soundwave. Ryan Pax, he wants more, like a classic Disney princess. He doesn't want to be in the mines anymore.
You know what? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you again. If they'd wanted to make this a full-on Disney musical, I would have been okay with that.
If it was just a Disney musical, but every song sounds like the music in '86, I would have adored that. It's like the cheesiest '80s music you can imagine.
And then you have 115 Transformers that are line dancing to the main theme. Transformers! And then they're all like holding hands.
That would have been awesome. That's why this movie's bombing.
Oh man, if this was popular, maybe we could have gotten the stage musical that did that.
Just a bunch of Broadway actors wearing like cardboard suits. That would have been perfect.
Okay, please finish your brief synopsis.
It's okay. So Orion Pax, he wants more. D16, on the other hand, much more believes in the system.
Status quo.
Exactly, in the status quo. And Orion Pax kind of is kind of pushing him to do more and more. And they end up going on an adventure because the 13 Primes who used to control Cybertron have all gone missing. And Orion Pax thinks that they can get... the Matrix of Ultimate Leadership. I think I just combined that with the Ultimate Showdown. But
yeah, there's no ultimate. It's just the Matrix of Leadership.
Oh yeah, I don't know why I added.
This is one of the only Transformers things I've ever seen that isn't dealing with the Allspark.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not to that yet, so it's all about the Matrix of Leadership.
And the Matrix of Leadership basically makes it so that Cybertron is producing Energon, and because it's gone, it's dried up, and now they have to mine it. And Sentinel Prime is their leader now, and he's talking about how they're looking for it, but they beat the Quintessons who originally invaded them. And then when Orion Pax and D16 go on this adventure, they find out that all of that was a lie. And then they flip around. One of them becomes Megatron, of course.
They
and one
take
becomes
the
Optimus
red
Prime.
pill.
Yes,
and
exactly.
The Matrix is important in many ways in this movie.
Yes, exactly. And then, you kind of have like a first-class divide between two friends as one becomes the hero and one becomes the villain. And that's the movie.
We believe the same things. No, my friend, we do not.
No, my friend, we
no,
do
my
not.
friend, we do not. Megatron! That's going to be this review tonight. Folks, strap in. Austin, you want to flip your sign first or second?
I can do first. It doesn't bother me. Whichever you prefer. I've been talking for a while, so if you want to go first, you can.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to. It sounds like nobody's gonna be surprised by how you flip your sign.
Yeah. I mean, I can also go first because I basically said that I do like this movie.
Like you liked this quite a bit. I'll go ahead and do mine just real briefly, and we'll get into spoilers pretty fast because that'll be. More of what we want to do tonight, I think, more fun. And what I want to say real quick is I imagine the majority of people that will watch this have seen this movie or Transformers buffs and, will not mind spoilers and just want to hear us talk the ins and outs of it. This is one of those movies that I almost kind of wish we'd done even a second, like 15, 20-minute video on, just to go, no, really go.
Mm-hmm.
Because people aren't bothering with this, and I'm really mad at Paramount for advertising it the way they did. It's just preposterous. It's like, we didn't make an Illumination movie, but we want everybody to think that we did so that they go. So you've got your all-star cast of voices that may or may not be right for the roles, and maybe may or may not even have any experience voice acting and sound very good. And you've got a lot of humor in those trailers that, having seen this, I don't even know how you cobbled together a trailer to make it look as bad as it. I don't know how that's possible.
I said to John after seeing it, I was like, there is no bigger example of how bad the marketing is in this movie than that shot in the trailer where they're all on the train and they're all like looking forward and Bumblebee runs away and it's like, haha, he's like the cowardly one. And then you watch the movie and that's not at all how that plays.
Yeah.
And it's like, you literally made a joke that's not in the movie that made it look worse.
They sabotaged it. Now, I don't know if the movie would have done great even if it looked really good. It is possible that a big screen 3D animated Transformers movie is just too hard of a sell for families, and that the adult fans that go to the Bay Transformers movies as we keep making those, this might not be the thing they're going for, considering that the Transformers in those movies are as in the background as they are. Like, there's other stuff people go to those for, and they also make a lot of money because of sales from other countries too. So like, it's not just here. So like, something that looks this authentic to the original series and is going back to Gen 1 designs and just much more that flavor, which is not how they advertised it, not what anybody would have. Like, it just looked like a gigantic joke. I don't know if that movie sells real well, even if it looks fantastic. I want to go to that alternate dimension, Austin, where they, in the advertising, gave you, now to be fair, I never saw a trailer past that teaser because it looked so terrible. There might have been a later one that got a little more serious, kind of like Deadpool and Wolverine, where like that movie they could sell on just the comedy and get people to go, but then suddenly I was more curious when they put that last trailer out, and I was like, oh, there might be a story here. Okay. One of the most shocking thing about this is that even just your basic synopsis getting up to the first act plot point is as involved as it is. You'd never know that from the way they initially advertised this. It just doesn't look like that. And I don't mean to keep harping on this, but like I said, it just looks like a real kind of nauseating throwaway, least common denominator kind of humor Illumination movie. And it's like they thought they had to do that to get butts in seats. I don't understand that. At the very least, put out like a trailer for kids and a trailer for adults, which maybe they did, but it was too late. You do the adult trailer first, like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and this does the Sony thing, where one of the first shots in that initial teaser is the end credits scene of the movie. Like, I don't even know how we did that.
And that sounds like a Sony move.
That's what I mean. Like, they just went full Sony with that.
Did you say that? I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm reading
okay.
comments and I'll miss a word. I apologize.
That's okay.
But yeah, that's... anyway, I almost want to say my worst thing is the advertising, but I won't do that. I'll get into the actual movie.
Yeah.
Austin, so real quick, I'll just talk a little bit about my history with this franchise, because I didn't grow up real hard with Transformers and never really, like the premise never really grabbed me. And having, friends over the years like you and Eric and some other folks, I've looked more into it here and there. David Crabtree's in the comments. He's asked me to review Transformers stuff before. He's the reason I kind of fell in love with 86 when he requested that for a couple of different shows. And I love that movie, but I never totally know what's happening in it. And I've done a full written analysis of that, and I'm still sometimes feeling like a little bit lost when I'm looking at that. I've watched the bits and pieces of various animated series. I like what I've seen of Prime. I always liked what little Beast Wars I watched like while it was on, and I've seen a couple episodes here and there a little bit later. I like the Netflix show quite a bit. I've got issues with it, and especially in that third season, but it's pretty good. And I'm finding that with Transformers, I have the same thing that I do with Superman, where I like the origin stuff more than I like the later stuff. Like I don't want the Transformers to ever go to Earth, is what I'm realizing. So this was a treat for me. I didn't realize I needed this movie, but I did. Like the Netflix show is cool because it's the last days of the. I mean it. It goes through a history. It's 3 seasons, but the beginning of that is like the last days of the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons, and everybody's out of Energon, and they're trying to figure out how in the world they're even going to survive. And there's kind of some nice politics and stuff with that. And this movie is even before that. And I walked into this almost completely blind because I didn't want to go see it in the first place. So all I knew was it's prequel material. So I figured it was just going to be like a condensed, like truncated a version of that Netflix show, figuring that they weren't remotely in each other's continuities, that this would be its own thing, or maybe it would be kind of a prequel to the live action movies in some like loose, goofy way, which I still get the sense, reading interviews from the producers involved in this, that they think that's what it is.
The producer of the series is insane. The live action movies have also rebooted, and he still talks about how there's things they can't do because it wouldn't line up with the Michael Bay movies, and it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't get it. I feel like a lot of head honchos in Hollywood don't understand how continuity works or what it is. And they don't care. It's not important if your movie is good, or at least for that standalone thing, of course. But anyway, I won't get in the weeds with that. But all of that to say, Austin, I went in expecting Cybertron War. I didn't realize that it was going to be a fully functioning Cybertron where we would actually get to kind of experience what that culture was like. And I'm not a big enough Transformers fan to have ever seen anything that does that. And I'm sure that shows up in places. There's tons and tons of Transformers stuff. I bet there's comics that do it and stuff. Austin can tell us. But this was all real new for me, and yet I also at the start was a little trepidatious about it because I said brief, but I'm finding I have things to say. I was a little trepidatious about it because I was like, okay, but we're kind of back into maybe prequel reimagining territory that I've seen done so horribly in so many different ways, where it's like, here's how these guys got there in the first place, and like, is there really going to be a story there? And I'm happy to report that there absolutely is, and that it's not, exactly what I would have expected and too typical, but it's also familiar and in kind of all the right ways and kind of refreshing. Austin, I'm gonna admit something that should be embarrassing, but it isn't, because I had no investment in this at all going in. So there is a short period in this movie before I even realize the two main characters that we're looking at, where I don't actually know it's them. Because I just wasn't thinking about it going in, and they actually kind of got me with that. So I might have had an even more fun experience than a lot of people going into this, not even realizing that I was looking at Optimus Prime and Megatron, which is not too much of a spoiler because the advertising gives you that and the posters and things, but I just wasn't, for the first several minutes, I just wasn't thinking about any of that. And so, I get this, there's a place where it hits me and I'm like, oh yeah, of course that's what we're doing. I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of clever. And then I looked over at Mikey and I was like, Mikey, do you think that guy's going to be Megatron? And like his eyes light up and he's like, I think he is.
Oh, that's great.
And it was just wonderful.
His design is also based off of the Marvel Comics Megatron with the black helmet.
Now that you say that, yeah, that's awesome. I am going to struggle to be very critical of this, which is unusual for me. But I just got kind of wrapped up in it, and it was a really nice escapist piece of entertainment. But it's also smarter than, like, by a lot than I expected it to be, and it's just so it's like textbook blueprint what a prequel, like a good prequel that actually has a believable story that gets our characters from who they were at one time to who we know them later. It's what that should look like, and it's also what franchise licensed entertainment for children should look like. This just reminds me of the kind of stuff that I grew up with that. And I don't mean that like I've got this big nostalgia thing with this. It's just refreshing because I remember growing up with a lot of family entertainment that worked on a couple of levels. Things like 1990 Ninja Turtles, things like Mask of the Phantasm, where it's fun for children because of all the action and the comedy and whatever. But there's actually a real story. It's actually about something, and adults have something, quite a bit more that they can sink their teeth into. And like, I feel like we've lost that much of the time, where things feel like they're just for kids or just for adults, and there's nothing in between. And this takes us back to the in between, kind of like '86 did, although it doesn't feel like it goes as far as that in some ways, but like this does get to a darker place than I expected it to. But yeah, Austin, like it was a real movie, and I wasn't expecting that. It also looks really good.
Yeah, the animation quality is fantastic.
It's pretty, and I wasn't getting that from what advertising I saw with it either. But yeah, so real quick, best thing, worst thing. Best thing I'm going to give to the lore. This is the first. Well, and like the obligatory thing for me to say would be that that Professor X Magneto kind of relationship, which is really good. Although one thing I would maybe. I almost want to reserve judgment until I see it again. One thing I would maybe complain about is I do think that the evolution to get each of those characters to exactly the way that we know them at the end is maybe rushed. I can't decide. I feel like it's maybe a little rushed. I almost want them to get to the end of this movie and not even quite be there yet, which is unusual for me to say, because usually I'm like, God, we're not even to that yet. But the point of this is they're not those guys yet. And so I don't know if I needed to be wrapped in as tight of a Christmas bow as it is when we get to the end. But
I did wonder about it. So
what's that?
I said I did wonder about it.
This is the first Transformers thing I've seen that has made me go, maybe I could be a full-on fan of this franchise. And I went all the way from, I have no interest in this, it looks like a terrible farce, and like Hemsworth is just going to make up all of his dialogue and none of it is going to be funny, all the way to, oh, this is why people like Transformers. Like I said earlier, I love things about 86, but this is like that, but straightforward. Mm-hmm. Which was just kind of refreshing to me to get to kind of see that material handled that way. Worst thing is hard because I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, maybe it's the thing I said a minute ago about the characters being kind of rushed to where they're supposed to be by the end. I can't decide if I really feel that way or not without another viewing. So I'm going to say it's maybe Bumblebee.
Well, if it is, then we share the same worst thing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where he's supposed to be obnoxious, and I think they do a good job of, like, making it clear why he is like that, but it's like, oh, isn't it funny that he's insufferable and he talks constantly, because in the B movies he never gets to say anything, and now we've taken him back to his really chatty self from Gen 1, but a lot of the humor that doesn't land is stuff we do with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's got a couple moments that I think are funny. The government line
genuinely amusing
is a really funny line, but it is a lot of that just he's annoying and that's the joke.
Yeah, and so I didn't love that, but I wasn't horribly put off or irritated by it, because as much levity and humor and I felt like a lot of the humor was really on point with the a lot of the jokes or a lot of the humor from Gen 1, even going back that far, it didn't feel like it was about that to me. It was just kind of window dressing.
Yeah, and for me,
Like I was wrapped up enough in the story that
Mhm.
the humor could be hit and miss, and I didn't care.
Mhm. Yeah, and for me, I don't like Bumblebee post the movie, so like it's what the franchise has been.
So yeah, I'm feeling it. Really, really pleasant surprise. I'll go as far as to say that if I had any excuse, I would actually go see this again in the theater.
Oh wow, that's a really strong recommendation.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I felt like I kind of got it finally.
It just finally connected. It transformed your way of view.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about all that.
It's
Like
more than meets the eye.
the title is a double entendre. Maybe a triple entendre. I never expected that with this movie. It seemed like kind of an obvious. It's a prequel. It's Transformers. What they did stuff with that. It's crazy. Honestly, I guess my real best thing should have been Matrix, but we'll get to all of that.
We'll get there.
Sorry, Austin. Go ahead and do your sign flip, man.
No, it's okay. I'm also feeling it. I think this movie is quite good. I said when the trailer came out, I was like, "This looks really bad," but I'm not angry, because I was like, "It's not for me. It's for the next generation."
Sure.
Like, I have the Transformers I like, and I also have a comic series right now that I really like. So it's like,
Well, I don't care about Transformers, so it's just another thing for me to skip. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to that.
no, exactly. And it's like, I haven't watched the last, I think, two cartoons, so it's like it falls in with that, right? Like it's not for me, and that's okay. And then when I watched it, it was like, it's still for that next generation, but in a way that goes, but like all you old fans come on in too. Like you can have a good time, but like it's still for the new generation, and I really appreciate that about it. I think that's really cool. Because like I'm already a fan. Like it's cool that the next generation can have this thing that brings them in. Kind of like, even though these movies aren't
It'd be
good,
nice if they were seeing it.
yeah,
That's what's frustrating about it.
yeah, no, exactly. But like even though these aren't good, like that's what the Michael Bay movies were for me as a kid.
I mean, again, they advertised a thing that was, hey, Transformers is cool, kids. Like, come in and see what all the fun is about. They advertised that as, isn't Transformers stupid?
Yeah. I know, it's wild.
I'm so confused.
So my worst thing, I'm just gonna go with you and say it's Bumblebee.
Is there much else that doesn't work?
Not to that same degree, I don't think. No.
I mean, it's a pretty tight story.
Yeah, exactly. Best thing. Well, I guess if I can throw out something else as a worst thing, I'll just say, I would say Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth. I think I hit a certain, so like for the first 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, it's just Chris Hemsworth, and then after that, I kind of settle in, and I'm like, oh no, he's this character, like I can buy it. And then when he shows up as Optimus Prime, for me, it was really distracting because just sounded like a bad impression. So I'll throw that out as another thing, but it's not like the end of the world. It was like, this is a little distracting. Like I just hear Chris Hemsworth going like, I am Optimus.
Well, it's like me just going, Cliff Jumper.
Exactly.
You got to get a little
an
grovel in your voice by
Australian
the end of it. Cliff Jumper. Arr, arr,
accent. Kangaroo machine.
Bacon and egg sandwich.
A dingo ate my baby. That's not a knife.
That's not a knife.
That's Cliff Jumper.
That's Ratchet.
My best thing. I will also throw like a
Hemsworth surprised me though. Like
he did for me overall.
Like he was. I felt like he was working really hard. to like take it seriously and not just do the same thing he does all the time. He was trying to actually make a character out of it. And it might have been nice if they had replaced him with a different actor once he becomes Optimus Prime, when he gets to his final form. But I liked it better than you did just because it was so much closer than I thought he had any chance at getting.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually wondered when it was first announced if they would do that. If his voice would change once he becomes Optimus, but that's obviously not the route they took.
I will say, Brian Tyree Henry does a much better Megatron.
Yes, and when they were first cast, I was like, that guy from Eternals, like, oh, that's even worse.
That's not gonna work.
And he is great.
He's really good all the way through.
Really good.
It just disappears. No, I love him.
Mm-hmm. No, he's fantastic. And he went to the premiere with a silver suit that had, I think, I'm trying to remember what exact quote it was. I think it was the such heroic nonsense, and then it just says like hyphen 86, like written on the back of his suit.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
It just felt like this was made by a bunch of fans. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of the high-profile voice actors weren't, but...
Well, that's the funniest thing is I saw that and I was
Tyree Henry.
I was like, oh, this guy's like a real fan. That's awesome. And then I saw an interview with it was him, Hemsworth, and Keegan-Michael Key, who's Bumblebee. And they were like, who's your guys' favorite Transformers? And
Cliff Jumper.
And he's like, there's this guy that no one's heard of, and his name's Ratchet. And I was like, he's like a pretty big character.
Yeah, so I don't know a whole lot about Transformers, but I do remember the pilot for Transformers Prime, and that show concentrates on like 6 total Transformers, and one of them is Ratchet.
Well, that was the same way with the Michael Bay movies. Like, Ratchet's always there.
Yeah. He gets a lot more to do in that show than in most things, though.
That is true. Well, and he's Jeffrey Combs.
And he's Jeffrey Combs, yeah.
Yeah, and he's awesome.
Which was kind of perfect casting.
Yep. No, he's great.
Oh, one of the other things I loved about this was just expressive character faces. It was a lot easier to tell people apart than usual for me with Transformers.
Yeah, for sure.
I have that issue a lot.
For my best thing, I will just also throw out another actor and say that Steve Buscemi as Starscream is like perfect casting because he already has that like nasally whiny voice. And I was like, I never would have thought of this, but yes.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't looked at the cast list. I like a lot of the celebrity voices, and this is a compliment to the movie, did not take me out. And if I wasn't looking at a cast list, I never like even Scarlett Johansson. I wouldn't have known that was her. Like, she just kind of sounds like that character to me, and she's not actually that far off from the actress that's playing her in the Netflix show.
Yeah, I can't even remember. But Scarlett Johansson's a pretty good voice actress when she shows up in things.
Yeah. So, like, the only ones I really recognized besides Hemsworth were just so right for it that I didn't mind the recognizability. And there's so much precedent for that with this franchise. Like, it's easy for me to go, oh, of course, they just have to go to a bunch of celebrity voices to sell it and to get people to pay attention to it. But then, like, that's one of the big, historic things about 86 that everybody remembers. And so you should have at least that one big major voice. And so when you've got Fishburne for Alpha Trion, like, yes, all day long, it's just perfect. I don't care how obvious that voice is. That's that Nimoy thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, 86 had Orson Welles.
Yeah.
His final movie. Like, absolutely.
And I'm going to Nimoy before Wells just because he doesn't get as many lines in that, and it felt a little bit more like that kind of casting to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, Leonard Nimoy's great in that, and he's in the third Michael Bay movie.
Yeah.
Not as the same character, but he's Sentinel Prime, who's the spoiler alert bad guy of this film.
Yeah, we'll get to just full-on spoilers.
Yeah, who's John Hamm, and he's great in this.
Yeah, he disappeared from me too. I didn't know that was him.
Mm-hmm. I had the same thing.
Unicron.
But yeah, so I am definitely feeling it.
I guess my favorite thing about this franchise is doing voices.
Oh, I mean, that's half the fun. The only thing we're missing in this one is Weird Al. If we get a sequel, he will be there.
I hope he's there to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Just make him a voice, and he'll disappear, and we won't even realize it's him. And oh, that's cool. Weird Al was voicing, I don't know, probably not Retgar. It'd be kind of weird if they threw him in this, but
Well, we could get there. I mean, that's also what Animated did. But like, if you're gonna put him as someone, Wreck-Gar makes the most sense because that's funny.
yeah, and
But-
just because he's done that before.
Mhm. No, exactly. He dares to be stupid.
So, Austin, getting into spoilers, I learned a lot watching this, and I don't know how much of it is learning about this overall franchise or just what they chose to do with it in this.
Probably a mix of it.
As far as lore and mythology goes, but the reason I'm saying that's my favorite part is because I just got kind of excited about this world and wanted to explore it more, and it was so much of like a Krypton or an Eltar from Power Rangers or something. I didn't realize that the planet itself is a transformer. And maybe that's talked about in '86, and I just don't remember it. But
it's not.
I
That comes later.
was not familiar with that concept.
Mm-hmm. No, that comes later because that's us building on the Unicron thing and going, okay, like he's basically Satan. Like, what if there was like a good one, and then we go, well, that's Cybertron.
Yeah, and so the idea that there's this like much larger scale rivalry between two planet-sized Transformers that are basically themselves Optimus Prime and Megatron is really neat. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and cool giving it like a kind of religious connotation as well. I've always really liked that.
Mm-hmm. And just it makes the And I don't know if the idea was always... This is another question I had for you, Austin. If the matrix of leadership always just comes from the planet?
Sorry, I was reading the comment like right when you finished that. Sorry, what was the end of that?
Yeah, just that the planet creates it.
Oh, creates Energon?
Well, no, it creates the matrix.
Oh, creates... Yeah. That typically, like, the primes come from Primus.
Okay.
And
like you said, there is a religious
matrix.
Yeah, like you said, there is a religious kind of connotation there, but it makes it like still mystical enough, but like now it doesn't feel like just this amorphous like overly magical idea. I'm like, okay, like it makes sense. I get where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, because it's both science fiction and fantasy in a way. Too.
It's full on science fantasy. We're getting into kind of the Force plays.
Yeah,
but the kind of big MacGuffins and Transformers were one of the things that always kind of put me off to the franchise because I never understood what they were, where they came from. It was always just this kind of, like I said, mystical sort of gobbledygook, where it's like there are these all-powerful things, and don't ask questions. And now, watching this movie, I feel like the whole thing makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wondered if we were going to get into the G1 origin of the Quintessons building the Transformers, but we kind of just touch on them, and they feel more like set up for a sequel.
I almost made that my worst thing, actually. I forgot about that part. Just that the Quintessons are this good looming threat, but you don't really get a good look at them.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know if they have the head flip thing.
That was my thing. Is I was like, they seem really generic. Because as soon as it was mentioned that we had a big war with them, and then we find out, again, full on spoilers now, that they're actually in league with what's his face that's taken over the planet,
Sentinel Prime.
Sentinel Prime, who is not in fact a Prime.
Yeah, he's a false Prime.
That whole thing was a really good surprise for me. I wasn't expecting that. I like how early it comes in the movie.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
It's basically the first act plot point. I mean, like everything you know is wrong. That should have been the Weird Al song.
It would have been amazing if we fit in another Weird Al song for no reason.
it wouldn't have fit with this movie at all. I like that the soundtrack is played straight. Like, as much as that stuff in '86 is really fun, there's not a lot of throwback here. There are little obviously Easter eggs and references, and it looks like that original show in a lot of the designs, but there's no, to me anyway, Austin, feeling of like bogged down with 80s nostalgia or anything. It's just it's like inherently 80s in the design, I guess, but it feels like a modern movie. Like if anything, it's throwing back to the way we used to make movies for kids that I miss. That was the throwback I was seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think they strike a good balance between updating the designs and just being the 80s looks. Like they're a little bit more detailed. Like there's when their limbs move, like you can see like sockets and stuff that will like extend their limbs and things like that. And that was pretty neat. Like the level of I almost said quality, the level of detail, is really good.
But yeah, I was really taken aback by that twist, by that plot point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was not expecting the Quintessons to show up in this, so it was cool that they were there, but I agree. I wish they looked a little better.
Yeah. That's my only complaint with that. But I like how involved the politics are.
Mm-hmm.
I could have made that my best thing. I could have said politics.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was shocked. Like, judging by, how they sold it, I didn't expect them to do anything kind of political in that way, let alone having these characters realize that the world they exist in is a lie. As well as having like a class divide, like all of that is pretty cool for a kids movie.
Yeah, and it doesn't, but it's not oppressive with it either. Like it's shocking, it's dark, it's messed up, but it never stops being fun. It never stops being in entertainment. It creates stakes for the world. It helps you buy both Optimus's and Megatron's like character transformations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that the Autobots are all essentially slaves. I find typically it's flipped. We usually do that with the Decepticons, and they're like the downtrodden rising up is how stuff like IDW does it. But it was kind of cool to see that flipped, where like the good guys are that, and they will try to take back the system. But like the Decepticons are also downtrodden. Like they're kind of both.
Yeah.
The people kind of screwed by the system.
Well, because the whole world is a lie, so they're all being like, no matter what class you're in, you're being taken advantage of. Like everybody's being used for the sake of the one guy at the top who has made himself a slave to an oppressive race just so that he can gain and then keep his power. And there's precedent for that kind of thing through history, and so I like that there is a social commentary here, but it isn't there's not any like specific connections or connotations to like today's world that are forced down your throat or anything like that. Like it doesn't feel politically motivated. So when I say politics, I mean the in-universe politics. Like there's stuff you could point to that you might find, I almost said relevant, that you might find familiar, but then a lot of what really resonated with me was just human condition stuff that rang true. You've got the ultimate rivalry between two best friends is really, really classic, and it doesn't feel like just the same thing all over again, but it's very familiar. So like we keep going back to that because it works. We can see ourselves in it. You've got two best friends that come from very different angles from the beginning in their worldviews and their ideologies, and their friendship is just based on mutual interest and nothing else. And once it starts to come down between like how should our lives be lived, what system of government is the best, what kind of world do I want to live in, they get to loggerheads. And what I found fascinating about that relationship is it starts it starts from a place with one guy who, like you said in your synopsis, Austin, with D16, you sunk my battleship. That's probably his last name. D16.
They're both Hasbro.
so it could be, yeah.
Set up the universe.
So D16, you sunk my battleship. He's like, don't rock the boat. I want to stay in the Matrix. I don't want to know that the world is a lie and that we're being oppressed. And when he finds that out, like his whole thing is, I don't have any ambition. I'm happy with the way things are. I just want to do my job and work for a living and be left well enough alone. And I'll go home and I'll play with my hologram stickers and I'm good. And his friend on the other side is essentially initially kind of the rebel who, like Austin said, wants something more. And you might think that it would be flipped, that the character that is overly ambitious would end up being the ultimate oppressor, but it comes down to freedom versus oppression. So the guy who wants to be oppressed, when he's ultimately horribly offended about the traitor that did that to him and how oppressed he was, it's the only system he knows and he thinks it works. And so he thinks he has to turn around and just do exactly the same thing. And the rebel, the guy that wants freedom, doesn't want just anarchy. He wants that not just for himself, but for everyone. So, like, it all really rings true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. And
I could just sit around and analyze this all day long.
No, and they don't come out and say it. But I like that that's also how you get Megatron coming up with a name that means essentially liars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I do kind of wish they got into that.
Fair enough.
That's like actually the reason that it, like, how we get there. Because I wasn't actually sure about that, but
that was just my assumption, because it's like these are the people that are kind of pissed off about this lie that they've been living.
Yeah.
It's like their name kind of reflects that.
But like, what does Autobot mean?
Oh, that I don't know. That's the name of the toy.
Like, if that's
yeah.
If that's going to actually come from an ideological place, I need Autobot too also.
Fair enough.
And that's part of why I'm not sure if they were thinking about that when they did that. Because when you get to that after credit scene, and I don't know why it's not an after credit scene, you have Optimus just straight up going, and now we're Autobots. And then you get to the end credits, and Megatron is like, yeah, we're the Decepticons. And I'm like, I don't know why we had to sit through credits before we got to just the reverse of that, but okay, the
it's like the most
scene.
Obvious after credit scene of all time too. Like when you're watching it, it's like, surely that's what it is, right?
We're supposed to be really excited that you said the thing. You already said the other thing. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It would be like if you had a Power Rangers movie and you had Zordzall movie, and then your after credit scene was the Megazord.
Yeah, you maybe could have like cut back and forth for the ending, where you're seeing both of them rising up.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it should have been intercut.
Yeah, that maybe would have been a better
especially
ending.
Because we already intercut the ultimate transformations from You Sunk My Battleship to I almost said Magneto to Megatron, and then the same thing with Pax to Optimus Prime.
Exactly. Well, and then you could have something like you have that farther off shot of him, and then you cut to the one of Optimus that's farther off, and then you cut to the close up of Megatron, and then you cut to the close up of Optimus. Cut to credits. Bada boom, bada bing. We're out.
John Kelling says freedom is the right of all sentient beings versus peace through tyranny. Yeah, like ironically, what's more important to Optimus Prime, and in all the Transformers stuff I've seen, of course, we just get him here. But what's more important to him than peace, of course, is justice and freedom, and like it takes teamwork to create that, whereas Megatron has a like might makes right philosophy, and so he wants order, but he's going to achieve that through only one singular person matters. I've always found that kind of an ironic notion, and it's also ironic because Optimus Prime's original name is Pax, which means peace.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. John Kelling also said right after that, "Are they Autobots because they finally gained their autonomy?" That could be what it is.
Oh, that's
if you
pretty
want to read
good.
into it.
And that
Because
actually
they are slaves that he like liberates.
it plays better in this than maybe
Mhm.
some other things because they start without their cogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I should back off for a second and say,
Yeah.
all of this, of course, because I'm talking about this in a pretty serious way, taking this pretty legitimately as a story because it is really, really well written. Inherently, Transformers is a pretty on the nose sort of melodrama.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
of course, and it gets really heavy-handed by the end, and in this context, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just gotta say that, like, it just depends on what you're looking at, right? Like, it really works with this when you have the really obvious metaphor of it's not the cog that gives you your transformation powers, but it's your spark that like it's not your body or your skin color, your ability or whatever. It's your what's in your heart, like where your heart is. It's really obvious that's what we're talking about. I don't care with that. Like, it works with this.
Yeah, I mean it's basically the same thing as the hammer was in you all along, Thor, but not stupid.
Yeah.
Like, it works for the material.
Well, and I also like that. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, as ambitious and maybe sort of full of himself, as the character that becomes Optimus is initially, we don't play him as like an arrogant, narcissistic jerkface, and easily could have gone to that place.
I agree. He could be like full Star-Lord, and he's not.
And by the same token, I think the reason that Megatron isn't as sympathetic as he is by the end is because he's not, like, it could have been the Magneto thing, and it almost was, by the way. It could have been the Magneto thing where he's been, horribly oppressed and treated as less than, and has a chip on his shoulder, and hates the government for what they did to his family, that kind of thing. And instead, we made him. What's his face? That bad human guy from the Matrix who just wants to get plugged back in. I really like that idea that he just starts from a place of ambivalence, and he just doesn't want to know, and so it's so much easier to shock him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And it was. Sorry, I just remember where I was going with that.
Yeah.
So it would have been really easy, by the same token as what I said with Optimus, to just start him from this really obvious place of anger and rage. And so the whole movie, you've got this guy that's just simmering and wants everybody dead, and then on the other side you've got a guy that is insufferably into himself. Mm-hmm. And we somehow skirted around both of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
On paper, I like their original idea better, but I'm actually really glad we got what we did, because originally they were going to make D16 a gladiator type.
And that is more what we do with Megatron, making him also a miner is more original to this movie.
Plus, DX says it's not that he doesn't want to know, it's that he thinks he knows. But I mean at the point where it's starting to unravel.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, but that's what I was talking about. Just getting a little bit further into the movie, because you've got that place where they're starting to unravel the mystery, and they've learned about why you can't go to the surface and the quintessons, and they're starting to figure out Sentinel Prime and all of that, and immediately D16 looks at Pax and says, "This is all your fault. Like, I was content where I was. I wouldn't have wanted to know this."
Yeah, which is also why I think his fall is okay. I had the same thing with you where I wasn't sure about it. Um, but like also at the same time, like whenever any issue comes up, his default is always violence. So it's like that's clearly like baked into him. He just wants to be the guy who's, working and not in the front line. So once he becomes that, that part of his personality comes out more. But like you, I also was kind of unsure about it.
I think one of the things I like about their already being friends in the first place is we don't get that obligatory like winking at the audience like first meeting, right? Like that's what we always do where it's like, "Hi there, I'm Optimus Prime." Like it's really nice that we didn't get that scene, right? They're just already friends at the beginning. And like I said,
They do it like the Red Hood way, where you get that at the end too.
yeah, like
Which is really
somehow
cool.
I didn't for the first 15 20 minutes even put together that that's who I was looking at. So I'm just watching a couple of, dingbat minor guys without a care in the world and going, why am I following these guys? Like in some ways this story probably unfolds better if you don't know anything.
Hmm.
This is a really nice like Transformers for people that don't care about Transformers, which is why I want. If you have to do prequels for things, and not everything that it makes sense to do this with. You gotta come up with the right story, or at least you can make anything work. Some of it's easier than other things, right? But like I want because Hasbro also owns this. I want this for Power Rangers so bad. Like I
Hmm.
want exactly this for Power Rangers. I want to go back and do like Zordon and Zed a lot like this and have it be a 3D animated movie and the whole thing is Eltar and you don't get the Power Rangers until the very end when Zordon winds up in his time warp and he's in his tube and he calls his first team. Like, can we have that? Can we please do that? Like, this is the blueprint for this for every franchise.
The like really obvious, like, oh man, we had to wait for that. After credit scene will be the end of the movie. Will be he's like, get me teenagers with attitude, and
Yeah.
then the after credit scene will be the Power Rangers show up.
Or do you just cut to black and it's Alpha going I like
Oh, well, that'll be the first after credit scene. The second one will then be
that's what they'll
uh,
do.
the Power Rangers.
No, it'll be Megazord.
Yeah. uh,
But yeah, I feel like I shouldn't have liked that choice.
yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of cutesy references and stuff that are very prequely, but none of them really bothered me. Like you have that one at the beginning
I
where
think they're
like
really well embedded, a lot of them.
yeah, you have that one at the beginning where Lita's like, "Oh, Ryan, you don't have the touch, you don't have the power.
I
Get
liked
back
it.
to work." It's like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And there are other things that I've seen that would annoy me in, but some of it's just the attitude and flavor of this.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It was also cool that the Decepticon logo is like a hologram photo that he gives them at the beginning, or a sticker, not photo. The way they handled all of that was really cool, I thought.
Yeah, and I like the kind of meta idea with that. It speaks to the toyetic nature of it, the like collectability of the toys and things in real life. Like I kind of like the like merchandising angle that's like really subtly embedded there.
Hmm. Yeah, we're merchandising the primes. Oh, you got to buy your favorite prime things.
Yeah, and all of that plays better when you realize what's actually happening, because that's the bad guy hiding in plain sight, where
Hmm.
he's going, everybody worship the primes, but really worship me.
Hmm.
But I got them all killed, and you're not supposed to know about that.
No, and Sentinel's just straight up evil, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
That he is just an a hole. Like that's his entire character.
Well, and it's nice to have that. Like maybe there's and I'm not saying I want this, but like just within the context of this movie, maybe there's a backstory to him where you'd see where he originally came from, and he would have a kind of sympathetic journey to getting him to that kind of two-dimensional evil place where he's that oppressive and doesn't care what happens to anybody else. Because if you just walked in on the Megatron at the end of this movie, he also seems like two-dimensional, just straight up evil. And so it's nice that you have that contrast where he's the guy that Megatron will become, and that Megatron thinks he has to be in order to take down that evil. He's just replacing it with the exact same thing, and he doesn't understand that, which, Optimus tells him at the end.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love how we take him out, just leans into that you can do anything to them because they're robots. So
Yeah,
it's
great.
okay to show to children. He gets ripped in half. It's so brutal.
It's really violent.
Like by his bare hands too.
But like you said, because it's robots, it doesn't feel as violent. I mean, maybe it does to kids if they're already invested in these characters. That's what happened with 86, where like children were just like flabbergasted and gutted and probably needed therapy. But
well, that had hurt that it was like a show that had been on for 2 years that all the kids were like, oh yeah, I love my great toys that I have. Oh my god, they're all dead.
Yeah, they didn't go in expecting that, there was a musical cue called "The Death of Optimus Prime," but but the other reason that it's nice that a movie for children like actually goes that violent sometimes, and again, you wouldn't want to go that violent if there was like blood everywhere, but just the basic argument I always have with this kind of thing, which is, well, you want actual actions and consequences in your movie for children, and that was very refreshing that we're back to that, where we can actually allow stories to go to those darker places and hurt characters that we like.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
Because it's not doing it, in a gratuitous way just to do it. But I also feel weird making this argument because there are no children seeing this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, mine did.
Like us.
I guess on a selfish note, like, I get to take my kids to a thing that came out in 2024 and, actually rings true and speaks to the human condition a little bit and might teach them something.
Mm-hmm.
Or make them think a little bit. I mean, it's a pretty thoughtful movie for what it is.
Yeah, they can go home and also become primes.
The power was inside you all along.
Mm-hmm. You maybe have the touch, maybe have the power. That's for you to decide.
Now that you say that, this reminds me, there were also choices that could have been really annoying if we lingered on them for too long, but were either fine or actually sort of fun. Like, how easy would it have been to take the idea of these cogless transformers, and I loved the thematic idea with all of that like the big reason our big bad guy is so terrible is because he lobotomizes his his subjects.
It's really messed up when you think about it. Yeah.
I don't know if lobotomize is the right word. He cripples them in some way. He like literally is taking organs out of them. Not a lobotomy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Making them weaker so they can be slaves.
I'm trying to figure out how to say this without sounding gross. I don't know, but yeah, he's crippling them, and I don't remember where I was going with all that. Sorry, I interrupted myself to make that point.
No, it's okay. What were you saying before that? No, I don't know.
I know where I was going with that. So you have the cogless transformers that are still called transformers, even though they don't transform because that's just the name of the species, and they and we have the kind of obligatory comedy / action scene where they're all trying to figure out their new powers once they get their cogs. That could have been obnoxious.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't like the entire second act. Like, we have to learn how to do this. I'm glad it was one scene.
And there's some fun, little bits of spectacle with that I actually didn't really mind.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Um, no, and then after that, I thought it was also really cool because right after they get them, that's when we introduce the Decepticon, who will be them. They're like the Prime's original army that were thrown away by Sentinel. And I thought it was also cool that we
Yeah.
like swap it where Optimus is leading them into battle. I thought like that stuff was kind of neat, just as a fan of this stuff.
Yeah, I thought there was actually a novelty to seeing all of the eventual Autobots and Decepticons on the same team for a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Like, that works if you know where it's going and if you don't.
Hmm. No, because if you don't, like, it just works for the story. But if you do, it's like, oh, it's kind of cool seeing Soundwave and Shockwave working for Optimus Prime and like they're following his rule.
Raise your hand if you have Wave in your name was one of the funniest lines in the movie. I love that.
Yeah, that is a good one. Um, there's also when they're flying into battle, Soundwave is like, I forget, is it the miners? I forget what it is, but he says whatever it is, he's like eject, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because it's like always the thing he says where he's like, ravage eject, and then it pops out of him.
Yeah, that one went over my head.
Yeah, I figured after I said it, I was like, oh, I should probably explain it.
Sorry,
No, it's okay.
I have hardly seen any of that show. Is the thing. So I've watched the '86 movie like 6 times now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've seen like disparate random episodes of that show, but like it doesn't hold my attention. Like it's a 80 Saturday morning cartoon show that I feel like if you didn't grow up with, it's a little bit hard to sit through. At least the earlier stuff. I mean, I haven't watched anything post the movie, but
Yeah, for sure.
but like Ninja Turtles is that way.
Mm. No, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the best jokes in '86. It's not even really a joke, but where he has to name all of them. It's like Soundwave, Ravage,
Ravage.
Frenzy. Oh,
Frenzy's
God.
not even one I know.
Yeah, which is funny because he was the first one to be like out of the tapes to be in the Michael Bay movies for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
He's like the little one in that movie.
But you know what I still want?
What's that?
I still want to hear Optimus Prime in that Peter Cullen voice go, Dispenser.
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
Well, now you're like a cool, like smooth jazz up.
Yeah. I lost it trying to say Mountain Dew. It only works when you say Transformer names.
It's like now Optimus Prime is selling Old Spice.
Dispenser. Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew. That's closer.
Mountain Dew from Old Spice.
Buy a 12-pack today of Mountain Dew.
Buy a 12-pack.
Buy a 12-pack. Pop open a can with Cade Yeager.
It's beautiful.
The title is perfect and seemed so obvious. Where it was like I said earlier, where we've been doing like zeros and ones and things a lot lately.
Minus
it's like,
ones.
It's a prequel, so it's Transformers 1. It's the first one. You actually go see the movie, and there's a really kind of thoughtful thematic idea of characters growing and changing and literally transforming, or figuratively transforming, I guess I should say. But then even the word one, it's not just it's the first story that really matters. It's also that till all are one idea that we bring like right to the fore in the third act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And Optimus is the one Prime now. It's a little bit more. I had the same thing. I was like, well, it's just called Transformers 1 because it's the beginning.
Yeah. Like, were you shocked it meant something?
Yeah, like as much.
Or
as
did
it
you give
was.
it any thought? Because I'm a title guy. I don't know.
Not like a little bit. I was like, oh, it is a little bit more than just here's the beginning.
Well, what's also really interesting about it is, like somebody was kind of saying earlier in the comments with what you sent my battleship, really wants at the beginning, that he likes the status quo and thinks everything is fine. Like everyone on the planet thinks that it's one in the sense that like we're all on the same page, we're all after the same thing. The miners have to work hard because everyone benefits from Energon, and it's not anybody's fault that they can't find anymore. And also, it looks like we're at the beginning that it's totally plentiful with Energon. I really like that the way the planet is introduced to us. It seems like perfectly above board and safe, and like we're as the audience sold the same bill of goods that the citizens on the planet are, and then we find out that things are not as hunky dory as they look, and in fact, all these miners are. And you get hints to it, like with Sentinel's henchwoman, where you're like, well, she just seems like a evil, horrible, like regular henchwoman. Like something's going on here, and then we find out that that's the case. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, everyone thinks that they're all working toward the same goal, and so all are one. And then ironically, the one that matters is the evil Sentinel Prime guy that puts himself ahead of everybody else. And then when you get to the end of the movie, you finally see where the divide is that we've always known about forever with the Autobots and the Decepticons. And you see what Optimus Prime is trying to build back toward, till all are one. We all, on the Autobot side, like care about finding common ground, and on the Decepticon side, it's just about one person, forcing everybody else down, which is a really simple concept, and there's an obvious lesson there for children. But I like how complex and nuanced that's made in this. But it's interesting that it's not Optimus trying to get us back to the nice, wonderful, safe planet we had at the beginning of this movie. We've still never seen that.
Yeah,
there's always something wrong with this planet. I really like that. And then it's also interesting, like, till all are one, the planet is itself a single transformer.
Yeah. No, and then on the Decepticon side, you also have that thing they introduce where it's like, we only follow the strongest one. Whoever can beat the crap out of our one leader, he's now the leader. Which is also a perfect new origin for Starscream. That's why he's deceitful and hateful. He's like, I was the leader of these people.
Yeah, that's a good call. So he's just kind of biding his time
he's like,
take down the new guy.
Like, I was running these people, and you just came in and took over.
You might roll your eyes when I say this, because I've always got to make my Star Trek reference. But I mean, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. Like I feel like I've earned it. If you know anything about Star Trek, the Autobots and the Decepticons are really just like the Federation in the regular universe and the mirror universe.
That makes sense.
Like you look at the way they operate, the Decepticons operate, and it's like everybody on the ship waiting for evil Kirk to make a mistake so that they can murder him and take his spot.
Well, now I want to know who the Autobot Spock is, because Shockwave is based on Spock, so I'm like, who would be the equivalent then?
Yeah, I don't know my Transformers well enough to give you a really great answer right now. If I did, though, I would say it in that voice.
That's why he's got like Spock ears, and he doesn't do it in this movie, but he always says logical.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
See, there's already Star Trek baked into this.
No, exactly. That's why Shockwave's the best.
and I mean, obviously with the Nimoy thing, like there's always been a history of Star Trek in this franchise.
No, they've definitely always been fans.
Something I was surprised to find out, and you don't get this, of course, just watching this movie, because there's no mention of Earth at all, which is refreshing to me, and I like they don't have to try to come up with some way to force in a human character or something.
Or even like a reference. Like they could have also done a thing where it's like, oh, there's this planet out there. Like we could have done something with it.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
I might have been a little worried if I had actually known what the premise of this was going in, that it would be like a Krypton TV show thing where they just couldn't commit, so they gotta have some human, like, from the future or something that comes back to see how it all happened. Like, I might have been worried something like that would happen. I'm glad that wasn't where they went.
Although it would have been funny because since you're on Cybertron, like they're all just normal size, so it would have been funny if just a human showed up. It's like, oh yeah, wait a minute.
I was thinking that the whole
giants.
movie. I was like, what is exactly the scale? And then when the miners get their cogs, they're much larger than the other miners. And then I was like, but how much larger are the miners than humans? And like I was wondering about the scale the whole time. And it's fun because I think you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is there is really no knowing just how large these characters are, especially because it's technically like it's own thing and kind of a prequel reimagining before it fits in any specific Transformers universe.
No, exactly.
But it's not like a drastic reinvention or anything. It's just continuity-wise, technically its own thing.
Yeah, I'd imagine the miners are probably similar to Bumblebee in the original show, where they're maybe like a little bit taller than humans.
So they're like 8 feet, but not 15 feet?
Something like that. Yeah, that's what I'd imagine.
But yeah, something I started to say a minute ago, Austin, is you wouldn't know this just looking at the movie because there's no mention of Earth, but I read in like background information that the idea is supposed to be, and I don't know if this is typical of Transformers, you'll have to tell me, that all of this is like a couple billion years before humans.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that about Transformers.
Yeah, in G1, they land on Earth, and then it goes a billion years later or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe I knew that at one time and I just forgotten because like I've seen that first episode, but I don't remember it.
If I remember right, because it's been a little bit since I've seen the first Dinobots episode, but I think that's like part of it is that there are dinosaur bones like right outside of the ship because like that's where it crashed like all that time ago.
Oh,
that's never been found.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on the continuity though. Like I feel like a lot of things kind of drop that. But that is what it is originally.
Because that's the thing with some continuities with Superman, and I mean like Krypton's never billions of years before Earth, but I was like it when there's a time differential where it's pretty far back, where it's not exactly the same like 1-to-1 time frames. So like Krypton didn't blow up 33 years ago. I much prefer it when Krypton blew up like a few hundred years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that also just sells how long this war has been going on too.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with Transformers. It's sort of like Star Wars, right? Like it's a galaxy far, far away. It's a long time ago. There's always wars. We can never get around it. Like even if you have periods of peace, they don't last very long.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that's all really analogous intentionally. Again, this is all on the nose, but in an interesting way. Like I feel like that's all intentionally analogous to human history, where the planet. What is I keep forgetting, and you keep saying it. What is supposed to be the name of what Cybertron was before it's Cybertron?
Oh, Primus.
Primus. Okay, so then that's why it's Primus. I don't know why I can't remember that. That's why it's Primus. Well, because this is a new concept to me. I was not familiar with this idea.
No, I'm not laughing at you. I get it.
You can. It's fine. So Primus is God, and God creates his subjects, a civilization in his own image. They look like him because they're robots and they can transform like he can. And he gives them free will and they can live their lives and have a civilization any way they want to. And what do they choose to do? They find petty reasons to bicker and not get along, and they go to war with each other over and over and over again, constantly threatening to end civilization and destroy their planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just human history.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we do. We're just Autobots and Decepticons down here.
And it's always tyranny versus some form of either benevolent dictatorship or in more modern democracy. But that whole idea is very clear and kind of Shakespearean in its way.
Yeah, absolutely. I should also say, because I felt weird saying, I was like, that sounds about right. Maybe, I don't know. David Crabtree corrected me that it's 4 million years they jump ahead. I said it and I was like, a billion is weird, huh? But yeah, that's what's in my head now.
Plush DX says in this continuity they get attacked by Quintessons. No known wars before that. I'm just assuming there must have been wars.
Well, that's just as far as we know.
As far as we know, yeah. Now, I could be wrong, certainly, but I don't buy with as, super evil as Sentinel is, that this is the first time anything like this has happened on this planet.
Mm-hmm. And I also think if we make a sequel, we will say that the Quintessons created them, and we'll go kind of into more conflict stuff with that. So
okay, sure.
So I feel like that will be a thing we peel back even more. More lies, more deception.
See, I kind of want something like that, because unless you want to just buy into the conceit of it,
mm-hmm.
It's always, this is one of the other things that's always kind of repelled me about this franchise, is it just seems a little bit too convenient or contrived that everything in this world is robots.
Mm-hmm.
They all gotta be connected in some way, right? Like they're artificial beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had to have a maker of some sort. It's not what came first, the chicken or the oven.
What came first? So I alluded to this at the beginning of the review, but I want to get just slightly more into it, mostly just because I think it's so cool and I want to praise it again for this. But Fishburne is just correct, casting wise, not just because he's got a cool voice and he's very commanding, and you buy him as sorry, we've been talking about so many names, it's not coming to me all of a sudden.
Oh, Alpha Trion.
Alpha Trion, thank you. And Alpha Trion, I'm familiar with now because of the Netflix show, and he's a pretty different character in this. But he is very much Morpheus. And
oh, yeah.
or at the very least, the role he has to play in this is very Morpheus. He's the guy that says your whole world is a lie. And there's no way Fishburne didn't read the script and go, okay, I see why you guys want me for this. Because he's just doing that again. And I love the kind of play on words, the double entendre with dealing with the matrix of leadership, and it is literally the Matrix. There's no way that's not all very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And also you've got you know what's really interesting too, Austin? It's not just the Matrix in the kind of metaphorical idea that everybody is plugged into a lie, where like it's not an actual artificial reality, but the day-to-day life they're experiencing is not what they actually think it is. But it's also literally the like under the surface, above the surface thing of the physical real world in the Matrix. Like nobody goes to the surface.
Mm. Yeah, and that
was kind of interesting they did that.
Yeah. No, and something I did not expect at all. I don't think I've ever seen that idea that like we have to live in the planet.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I thought all that was really cool and a new take.
But yeah, so I'm a little biased because I'm obsessed with the Matrix.
No, when that popped up, I was like, "Oh, Cap would be happy about this." It's just Morpheus.
I was very happy about that, and I would have seen all of the Matrix subtext even without Fishburne, but that just
Of course
put it over the top.
Mm.
And you didn't think any of that was too cute or obvious or anything?
No, I mean, 86 is also very Star Wars, like in how it's
Sure.
made. So like, it's just kind of updating it to a different thing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it is already directly, almost directly referenced, another like major pop culture thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like I would say this is to the Matrix what that was to Star Wars.
Well, and giving Transformers a somewhat like cyberpunk bent is a really good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. When I had the same thing that you did, where I assumed that this would get into the war like right away, even if Megatron and Optimus weren't who they were yet. I was like, okay, but there's going to be something with that. Like we will be in the war in this movie. So I was like, he was surprised that we just got to live in this world.
Yeah. And then at the end, I mean, we're kind of setting it up where there's, Megatron's not just going to sit back and let Optimus rule. That war is going to happen pretty darn quickly.
Mm-hmm. No, it's basically already started with the like killing Sentinel and stuff in the town square.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually kind of surprised by how far we took that, where Megatron goes, like now I'm Megatron, I'm taking over that underground group, and as for my first act, I'm going to murder everything. Like I really didn't think it was going to go that far, and again for a second I kind of thought maybe it was getting him there too quickly, and then when he goes, I want to kill everyone that followed Sentinel Prime. I'm like, this is what a guy whose world was this small and feels completely betrayed does when he gets power. It's like dropping too much money on somebody that's never had it. Like, in that way, I kind of buy that. And then also just being on brand with the character, it's Megatron. Like, once he's calling himself that, he just turns his arm into a big gun and he goes ba-boom at like, yes. Of course.
No, and you have that great moment earlier where he's like, I want to like grab Sentinel and like drag him through the streets and like hang him up. And there's that awesome part where like all of our other main characters are like, oh my god, like what are you talking about? And Alpha Trion has like a face like, nah, I agree with this guy. Like I hate Sentinel.
And like, is the timing a little forced where he like Megatron and Optimus Prime become their themselves the people we know like at exactly the same time? Is it a little ham-fisted? Yes. It also feels completely right for this material.
Yeah, no, it's like your soap opera in X-Men, right? Like it's part of the franchise, really.
Yeah, no, that's a really great comparison.
Mm-hmm.
It's like at the point where you're complaining that Magneto has too many like highfalutin speeches, you're not getting the material.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because that
you're asking it to be something it does not know how to not be, and that's part of why I felt like this was so authentic. Because I didn't expect this to, even being such a like not even really a fan of this stuff, being as casual as I am with it. From almost moment one, I was going, oh, this actually feels like Transformers. Like they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They don't want to be something else. Like they like this stuff. There was a clear admiration for it from the beginning.
No, the second that we got a GoBots reference, I was like, okay,
yeah, that's pretty funny.
I'm in for something cool. I was the only one in the theater that laughed at that too. I thought that was awesome. But
I'm still upset with Jason for not coming with us.
Yeah, it's funny. Maybe 2 days before you said like, okay, I am gonna go see it, Jason sent me a meme on Facebook, and it was Godzilla minus one, Transformers one, and that new Terminator thing.
Terminator Zero, yeah.
Yeah, Terminator Zero, and it
Which
was
you still
like,
should watch. It's cool.
yeah, no, I should at some point. And like my immediate reaction wasn't even like, oh, it's because they all have numbers in them, like it kind of you go -101. I was like, oh, it's because we just had like really good reboots of these things.
Yeah.
And it's like that's my gut reaction. I say that, and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, like it's good." I was like, "Yeah."
It's like, yeah.
That's what your meme was about.
No, I told him I was taking Freddie and Mikey, and I was like, you come with us. It's like, I don't care. I don't like Transformers that much.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And I messaged him, from the theater when the movie was over, and I was like, when you see this, you're going to wish you'd been here. And he was like, really? Like, even at that point, he wasn't buying it. He's like,
Yeah.
Really? It's like, yeah, it's
like,
really
no way.
good. And I told him a couple things. He goes, oh, that sounds really cool. I was like, I know. Well, because I didn't know the premise going in. I explained the kind of Clark and Lex of it, and he was like, oh, that sounds cool. I was like,
Yeah, that's why it's bombing. It's Jason's fault.
Now you still think there's a chance that it gets planned trilogy though?
I think there is like a slight chance.
I'm worried it's not going to happen. No. Happily,
Yeah.
this stands on its own really well though. Like,
it does.
This is kind of like a Batman Begins, and obviously that got sequels, and Dark Knight is great, but it feels like a Batman Begins in that that's a specific period of Batman's history that nothing had really tackled before.
Mm-hmm.
And so forgetting the specific continuity, this scratches an itch, even if we never get any more in its continuity, because all you really have to do now moving forward is to reinvent some things in periods that we have done stuff with, because this would now have to pave over the same thing that the Netflix show did. Like the very next thing well, that's not fair. There's a movie in between. Like the early days of that war, how the actual full-on civil war happens. Like, I guess you could chronicle that, but then after that, you're pretty much in the same territory that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same with the Cybertron games. You would have a double beat of Optimus becoming a Prime, but
okay, yeah, because I've not played those,
mm-hmm.
and I want to, but they're like $50 a piece now.
Yeah, when that game, the first one does not do Orion Pax. He's just Optimus, but his kind of quest in that is becoming a Prime.
Okay, I want to play that.
They're really good.
But if they announce that remaster pretty soon, I'll wait on it, because I don't want to spend a bunch of money on that game and then find out I could have played it. I could have gotten a collection later for the same price. But
the first one's multiplayer, so we could do like a stream of the story mode. The second
cool.
one's all one player, but
multiplayer story across consoles.
I don't know about consoles because it would be like a new version, but that is more common now.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Because I never played any multiplayer, so I always assume multiplayer is just like arena fights and stuff.
Yeah, no, the campaign for the first game is 3-player co-op.
No, sorry, when I said across consoles, I just meant online. Like, I'm really surprised by that.
Oh yeah, no, it's not split screen co-op, which I always thought was lame. But
no, you should always include both.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
I have not bought games because they didn't have them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't care what anybody says.
But it's like every level, it's like these are the 3 characters that are on the adventure of this level, and you just pick them at the beginning.
Nicholas Bodo says, hope we get a sequel. I do think this could be one of those things where it gets to like cult classic status really fast, and they go, where the like Paramount Plus numbers, because I'm sure it'll go there very, very quickly, are in like Amazon just through the roof. And they start thinking that if only they advertise it right, there's a chance the sequel does a lot better. And you could have a Batman Begins Dark Knight situation on your hands there, except Begins made money, but then Dark Knight was just absorbently much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge, and I mean I don't know that a sequel to this would be huge, but I think it would do much better just based on word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. Probably not to the same degree, but like a bit of that Spider-Verse thing, where I think the first
Hmm.
Spider-Verse does like 200 million, and then the second one blows up a lot more.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
if this won an Oscar, that would probably help.
yeah, but yeah, the big thing will be
This should
streaming.
win an Oscar.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll
yeah.
go. I mean, I'll go that far. Like,
It
I mean,
depends. It's either this or Wild Robot, I
I know,
guess.
and I haven't seen that yet. It just depends on what it's up against as far as animated features go. But
The
like,
animated features will be this, Wild Robot, and Mufasa the Lion King.
no, no, it won't. They'll call that live action.
Yeah, I know.
But like, I know
uh,
the bar is not very high for animated features right now. But I mean, this goes much far above it. Like very far above it. That was a terrible sentence. I'll just move on. But Austin, I know that you don't watch the Spider-Verse movies because you find them difficult to look at. But this is in that league storytelling wise.
oh, okay.
I think they're absolutely right there together.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I'll go that far.
And then the other big thing with this will be toy
Spider-Man
sales.
into the Spider-Verse.
Miguel O'Hara.
Miguel O'Hara. Spider-Man 2099.
The Spot.
There's a new villain in town. His name is the Spot.
Roll out.
Roll out.
But yeah, the toy sales will also be a big factor too, I think.
That's a good point. And it's got a good line.
Because
I've been looking at him. I want to buy him for Mikey. I need to look at the smaller ones and see what the price is on them, because that's a collection I would think about building for him, or at least get like 3 or 4 of his favorite characters.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, Rise of the Beasts also didn't. I think that lost money, and they're making a sequel to that. So
Sure,
we'll
but
see.
the animated thing is sometimes a little different, where
It
they're like,
is, yeah.
well, we took a risk on this because this comes out of that weird writers' room they had in 2014, where a bunch of people just spit out a bunch of ideas, and this is one of those going back, all the way that far.
And pitched by the Ant-Man and the Wasp writers.
Isn't that
How
crazy?
did we get? How did we get this movie?
Yeah, because they would have made something closer, I would imagine, to what we thought this was.
Yeah, exactly. They sold it like those guys pitched it.
Well, I don't understand that. I know I'm harping a lot on the advertising, but it's because it's not fair that nobody's paying attention to this, because we need stuff like this right now. In especially like tired licensed properties that won't go away. If they all did stuff like this, you wouldn't hear guys like me and Austin complaining that franchises won't die.
Mhm. Yeah. No, very
That's
true.
why it matters. No, I want to like maybe I'm overselling it, but I was just really surprised by the quality of this and how much fun I had with it. Like I want to thank the guys that made this for making something for my 6-year-old. And specifically my 6-year-old, because Mikey loves Transformers.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have imagined that like one of the better Transformers things happens this late, like as he's a little kid.
Mhm. Yeah, like the
Figured he'd
perfect
always
age
have to
for
go
him.
backwards. Like, he got to go to a brand new thing in the theater that was just perfect for him. And you should have seen him. Like, he was just lit up from start to finish.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I'm glad it's for kids like him. Like, it's for that next generation. And it's also not giving me the middle finger and saying, "Get lost, we're done with you."
Andrew says he thinks I might have enjoyed this more than you did, Austin. I think I was maybe more impressed with it than you, because
Probably, yeah.
I'm not a big Transformers guy, and you have, whole runs of really smart, sophisticated Transformers comics to compare it to.
Mhm.
But also I didn't care, and you did, and you got a good Transformers movie, and I went, oh wow, this is a whole thing I don't care about. I kind of care about it now. So
no, I mean I'm stoked about that, but you're probably right in that you probably appreciated it more because you don't have that.
yeah, this is the kind of thing that makes you want to stick with a franchise.
Well, this is maybe arguably like it goes into the pack of things I like.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
the franchise, yeah.
I meant to say this earlier, but I also like how it's got a really good sense of, like, there's some just good writing 101 things going on here. A good sense of rising tension, building stakes. The stakes are always at this high level, but you don't realize it. And so at first, especially if you went into this knowing nothing and didn't realize that you were looking at Optimus and Megatron, and you thought that you were just looking at Pax and You Sunk My Battleship, it starts as just a very kind of Pixar-ish, like two guys that are kind of outcast, nobody pays attention to. Maybe that they have a chance at making it in the big race. We didn't really talk about that, and we get to that scene, and I'm like, okay, where is all of this going?
Yeah, no, I had the same thing where it's like, oh, we're doing like a race, like, okay.
It's like these guys are gonna prove themselves, and then they get to be real Transformers, and like that is what happens. But the stakes are much larger.
They're gonna go the distance.
And it does end up being a tear down the system movie, but what it's replaced with is tumultuous at best. And one of the guys that helped tear down the system is just as bad as the system they tore down. So this ends up being a case where I don't mind the tear down the system thing, because sometimes that's just handled like way too easily. Where it's like, here's this impossible to overthrow regime. In the next hour and a half, we're going to overthrow them.
With what you're saying, you know what this also should have been? The Phantom Menace? Or I guess the other way around, where it's like, here's the beginning of this, and then you get the beginning of the big conflict.
That's great. Well, and I mean, and it kind of watches like that's what George Lucas thought he was making, right? We're like, in his head, he thought he made this movie. Kind of. I mean, I already had that thought, only in the sense that I wish the Star Wars prequels were like this and like fit all that material better. But you're absolutely right with the pod race thing.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
We straight up have the pod race.
Oh, you weren't even thinking that. Yeah, just the pod race thing.
It's funny because I had that thought in the moment in the movie, and then I wasn't even thinking about it right now. Making that comparison. Yeah. Gotta love it when that happens.
Yeah, no, I went from this looks like a stupid farce that I have no interest in. I hope it comes out and nobody sees it, to crap, nobody's seeing this, and I'm gonna rush out day one and buy the Blu-ray. I'll buy a collector's edition if I can get my hands on one. That's how much I liked this.
Well, if it continues to sell like this, it'll be like the Rise of Skywalker collector's editions that were just completely 100% stock.
No,
just walk in and grab 8.
I think this will do really well on streaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I definitely hope so, but that will be what saves this movie.
Nicholas, hey Cap and Austin, who is your favorite depiction of Megatron? So I am unfamiliar with Transformers enough to not kind of see most of the versions I've seen as basically the same character with like just slight variations. I like the pathos of the Netflix version a lot, and this gets us there, but with a very different backstory than he had in that. So I want to say it's kind of maybe a tie between them, but I think at least in the moment right now, the Netflix version edges out for me. But like, it's not fair because that has a lot of time a lot of real estate to develop it.
Well, you also get to live with like actual Megatron while he's that at the end.
Yeah, and I still can't decide if it's a little rushed.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that. But what is it for you? Because you've probably read and watched 38 Transformers thing.
Yeah, I had the same thing where I'm like, what would it be? Because there's a lot of really good ones, and a lot of the ones that I really like are kind of samey. I guess probably Prime. A lot of that's just Frank Welker's so good on that show. But I guess it would be that.
I need to finally watch through that.
It's really good.
Because I love what I've seen of it. But and I know I'm a broken record, but like I never thought I would say like I'm in a Transformers mood. It's just not my thing.
Yeah. Well, now I need the double beat of showing you the Skybound comics, and then you'll be like, okay, I get it.
2 days ago, I could not care less about that. And like you keep talking it up, and it sounds great, and I'm like, I just don't want to read Transformers in comics. I can't tell who I'm looking at. The heads all look the same. I don't care. And then
there's 3 characters.
There's 9 billion characters in most Transformers things, and I can't tell any of them apart. And I just want to say their names in an Optimus Prime voice and be done with it. And then I go see this movie, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like I just had a light bulb thing with it. Like I'm a believer now. And I never thought I would say that. Now, I might get to next week and be like, I mean, that was good, but Transformers. But just right now in the moment, this is how I'm feeling about it.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to be a hypocrite. People are going to expect me to just suddenly do all this Transformers content. I'm not promising that. I'm just saying, right now, I'm on this kind of euphoric high, and it's heightened by the fact that this was supposed to be the worst movie that came out this year.
Yep, and it's not even close.
And it's the friggin' Twilight Zone again. This keeps happening with just stuff that I'm like. Joker 2 is going to be amazing, right? It's going to be the best movie of the year because I don't expect anything from that. And this it won't be. It really won't be. But this
hopefully.
I'm just joking. But this keeps happening with stuff. Where like I didn't expect very much from Deadpool and Wolverine. I really, really liked it. Like,
yeah.
Keeps happening. But then on the flip of it, like my most anticipated movie of the year besides Apes, which I actually liked better than everyone else on the planet of the Apes. But
I wish that was the actual title.
But the second most anticipated movie for me was Beetlejuice, which was such a massive mixed bag. I ended up flipping red on it.
Yeah, it was disappointing.
Which I wanted to walk out halfway through, and then it wrapped around in the third act, and I was actually really enjoying it by the end.
Is it then worse that you were like kind of disappointed by that, and that's one of the big things that kind of kicked this film off at the box office?
Yeah, a little, but I mean, I do have a lot of admiration for things with that films. Like, it's not its fault.
I just wondered,
but no, that's fair. If it wasn't that, it would have been something else. Like, whatever kind of big movie was happening at the box office right now was going to trounce this, because Paramount trounced it itself.
Yeah. Gotta love Paramount. They're always going to do their thing.
Yeah, like, they're either ruining my favorite franchise, or they're making a great thing of franchise I don't care about, and then not selling it properly.
Yep.
Or they're doing some weird blend of it, like with Ninja Turtles, where they make a thing that a lot of people liked that did okay, that I thought was not very good. That is the gambit of possible.
Well, the next one will just be the Transformers meet those Ninja Turtles. That's how we bring it back. Those Ninja Turtles go into their time machine, the little thing from 3, and then it takes them back to Cybertron.
And they'll find some way to rope in Star Trek with that too, won't they?
Yes.
How dare they? John Kelling, Transformers 1 now streaming on Optimus Prime Plus. I made a similar joke yesterday after we saw this movie. I can't remember what exactly I said, but I was like, this movie's about to come out on Optimus Prime. Jason and I were joking about that for a while.
And then Prime will be like, if you love Transformers 1, you'll really love Rings of Power Season 2.
Austin, somehow we already got the 2 hours. What, or close to 2 hours. What else did we talk about?
That's crazy.
Anything? Yeah, I know. Well, that's because we spent about 20% of it just saying names and in an Optimus voice.
Very, very true.
We did a lot of that. I've been sitting here racking my brain trying to think of other Transformers names and realizing I'm just not. It's like anytime I'm stuck talking about Pokemon, I know 5. Okay, like Charizard, Jigglypuff,
Pichu,
Raichu.
I guess my one thing, if we're gonna do a sequel, I really
Mimikyu.
Snorlax.
Mr. Mime.
I'm gonna say Mr. Mom.
No, we're saying Pokemon.
I don't know anything about Pokemon.
Not
though,
Michael
so.
Keaton films. Multiplicity.
The Night Shift.
This is so off the rails.
The remake of RoboCop.
RoboCop 2014.
Yeah, if we're gonna do another one of these,
The Founder.
I just hope that Shockwave gets more to do because he's very silly in this. But I want like scary Shockwave, so I hope I get it.
John Kelly, 60% of this how he felt about his captain, Cliff Jumper.
Cliff Jumper, which is why you'll love
Cliff Jumper.
Which is why you'll love Skybound, because the like second page of that book is Starscream blows Bumblebee's face off, and Cliff Jumper is the main kid one.
See, that's hilarious. I love the
yes.
Yeah, I love the point they're making with that.
And then in the
it doesn't have to all be about friggin' Bumblebee, everybody.
In the letters pages, someone was like, "Why did you kill Bumblebee off at the beginning?" And he's like, "'Cause he's in everything, and I'm tired of him."
And there's 9,000 Transformers you could be using. So I don't want Cliff Jumper though. Cliff Jumper. I don't want Cliff Jumper to become my new Clock King or anything. It's not like I'm a giant fan. I don't even know anything about Cliff Jumper. I
just like that name.
It sticks with me because there's that whole thing with him in the first episode of Prime where he gets hurt and Ratchet's got to patch him up. And then in this movie, he comes up in the first 10 minutes. And I was like, why does Cliff Jumper keep popping up at the beginning of Transformers things?
He also shows up at the beginning and dies in the Bumblebee movie.
Oh, that's right.
Part of why it makes me laugh, that's always the one you go to.
The death of Cliff Jumper.
There's that YouTube video that somebody made. I think it's just called like Transformers Have Weird Names, and it's like making fun of how awkward their names are. But the skit is Optimus talking to Cliff Jumper, and Cliff Jumper's the one that's like, "Oh, what? Like, there's a guy named that." So it's like, Cliff Jumper, go hang out with whatever guy.
Yeah. It's like low-key important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cliff Jumper, he's just always there. He's just Red Bumblebee, but he's always there.
Andrew, AMC says, Birdman!
We gotta say the full title.
I don't remember all of that.
I don't remember all of it offhand either. That's why everyone just calls it Birdman.
I can't do that. John Kelling, Cliff Jumper isn't hurt in Prime, he's brutally murdered. Oh, is he actually dead at the beginning? I forget.
Yeah, he gets killed and then
I haven't watched that in 8 years, okay? And I don't care about Transformers except today.
And then he comes back as a zombie and then he dies again. And he's voiced by The Rock.
What?
Yeah, he's The Rock in that show.
In Prime?
Yeah, they made a big deal. They were like, The Rock is going to be playing Cliff Jumper. And then he dies like opening scene.
Oh, it's so weird. Alita 1.
The Rock.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Black Adam.
We're changing the hierarchy of the Transformers universe here.
Changing the hierarchy of saying names in a bad Peter Cullen impression.
I don't care if it's indulgent. I really enjoyed this. Uh, well, Austin, thanks for reviewing it with me.
No, no, thanks for going to see it. It was good to talk about it.
Yeah, it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. It really is.
I think it like just skirts into my top 10.
Well, you've seen a lot more than I have, but
Yeah, but I
like,
just mean like it's also up there.
how is it this good? There's just not much I'd change.
Mhm. Not exactly.
They just did it right. I don't know. That makes me happy.
You get a gold star, but not at the box office.
Yeah, you don't get any stars you can buy things with. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Nick,
congratulations, Paramount. This movie's going up on the fridge.
Nicholas Bodo, would you guys like to see Unicron in this universe? Well, to the point where it would be massively glaring if it didn't happen because you're making a big deal out of Primus and he has an arch nemesis just like Optimus does. Like, that jumped out at me really hard where I was like, oh, okay. I never understood this about Transformers. This is one of the reasons I said lore is my favorite thing, where Optimus and Megatron are an encapsulation of the larger celestial battle that's going on.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I
No,
never understood that. Immediately when you get it into those kind of terms, I get much more invested.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
and
just
a
love
lot of
stuff like
fans
that.
have suggested this, but I agree. I think it would be cool if we get Peter Cullen as Primus and Frank Welker as Unicron,
Better
and kind
make
of
it
bring
while
back.
they're both still alive.
Yeah, exactly. They're both doing stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hmm.
I just want to see a full-on battle between the two planets. Like,
Yes, it'd be awesome.
man, how cool would that be?
Hmm.
I mean, what do you do with it, Austin? Like, do you have Unicron? And I don't know what it actually is in the lore, like how exactly, uh, like what exactly happens to the planet when they leave it. But I mean, I guess if you've rebooted, you can do anything you want to with it, or you're not rebooted, but you made a new continuity. But like, as far as I understood it, Cybertron was always still kind of there. It was just uninhabitable, right? Does the actual planet explode like Krypton, or is it still there?
So it depends on the continuity, but it is always still there. It's just some versions it's inhabitable, and then other versions it's just a planet. Like it, G1, like it's still Cybertron.
Because what I'm imagining is you have a big epic kind of like Superman versus Doomsday level battle between the two planets, and it renders both of them, like inert.
Hmm.
That's kind of what I'm imagining.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool.
And then at some point, Unicron gets, obviously when you get to something like the '86 movie, like he gets, brought back online somehow, but Primus doesn't. I do something like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You could also do like some sort of flashback thing, where you get to see both big planets fighting each other.
You mean like even pre this?
Yeah, like not like as a full movie, but you could do like a sequence
Yeah,
where they're
sure.
learning about this stuff, where we're introducing Unicron as a concept.
Well, I trying to figure out like what you think the actual lore for that is. So like Unicron's around already.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Like I imagine he's probably just out there somewhere. I have a feeling when if we do a sequel and the Quintessons
Unicron.
and the Quintessons are like the villains, we will probably uh, kind of go into the Primus Unicron stuff and do all that.
Andrew says it's poisoned by Megatron in some versions.
Yeah, that's what it is in the Cybertron games, and I can't remember if that's what it is in Prime. Prime and the Cybertron games are connected, where Hasbro is like these things are connected, but they're like in no way matching. But I can't remember if it is in Prime like that too.
You know, we'll go ahead and get going here in a second, but I just had this thought, and this is not a fully formed thought, so if this sounds stupid when I say it out loud, forgive me. But um, with the backstory now with Sentinel and the way Megatron destroys him,
Hmm.
I Galvatron in this universe would be really interesting. or just imagining Galvatron, because essentially Unicron would force him in the same kind of subservient position that he hates Sentinel for letting himself get into with the Quintessons.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be killer if we did something with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't even necessarily have to go to the Galvatron place. Like, you could still keep it as Megatron and kind of discuss that, like any sequel.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think you could.
That'd be really interesting. That or they'll just flip it and they'll have Optimus work for Unicron.
Well, that could maybe work too, just to like let him kind of see the other side of it.
Yeah. Well, that was supposed to be
the implications of that just inherently are there, though.
Yes, I agree. That'd be really cool.
Sorry, I just thought of that.
No, it's okay.
No, Galvatron.
That was supposed to be the cliffhanger of the Beasts movie. So, like, that is potentially in their head.
Oh, sure.
Flipping that relationship. So, but who knows?
You done got me caring about this stuff.
When Unicron's always awesome, so as long as he shows up, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I just love Unicron because, like, that design is neat, and he's I don't know what it is, but I'm a sucker for. This is gonna sound so stupid. I'm a sucker for giant, round, scary, like base of operations type things that look kind of like a character or might actually be a character. I like one of the only things that as a kid I really latched onto with Star Wars was the Death Star. And I'm obsessed still with the Technodrome from Ninja Turtles, which also is just a ripoff of the Death Star.
But Unicron is the Death Star if he was Galactus.
Yeah, and of course, as everybody knows, I'm a gigantic, obsessed Galactus fan.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why I like that stuff, and it makes me feel like really stereotypical male nerd. I like really big things that blow up stuff. Like it's not. That's not really me. I don't know why I love that stuff.
I was gonna say there's another guy who liked that. His name was Michael Bay.
Well, I should try that guy's movies. Michael Bay.
Michael Bay.
Well,
produced by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, he's still producing these. His name is still on them.
You know what we needed, Cap, is Chris Hemsworth in his Optimus voice to read off the cast to announce the cast list. That
would have been wonderful.
It didn't work for Batman, but it would have worked for Optimus.
It would have worked better. Oh, you mean to advertise it?
Yeah, like that's just the first teaser.
It would have worked better than what they did.
100%.
More people might have got Scarlett Johansson.
Like, imagine if that was in the theater.
John Hamm. Oh, that would have been so good. I wish they'd done that.
Steve Buscemi.
And you know what they should have done? They should have had the 86 Transformers theme under it, even though that's nowhere in this movie. Transformer Sam Hamm.
The writer of 89.
More than meets the eye. Lawrence Fishburne.
The writer of 89 is the voice of Sentinel.
Did I say Sam Hamm? John Hamm.
Sam Hamm. With Bill Finger.
I don't know why Sam Hamm is in this movie.
Or why he's with Bill Finger. I don't know.
John Kelling. How to impress Cap. Rip off the Death Star. That's how you do it.
Exactly. That's all you got to do. If Star Trek introduced the Death Star, it would be back to normal.
Well, yeah, you say that, but that's probably part of why I like the Borg so much. The big, giant, scary cube. And then they do the sphere, and I'm like, that's lame. And it is round, but it's just an escape pod. And, like, why are their escape pods round? It's like they just like geometry. It's not any sense of perfection with the cube shape like we thought. They just like, and then there's nobody cares about this. And then there's a computer game, there's a PC game where they introduced the board pyramid. I was like, no, stop
Brutal.
it. It's stupid.
Jean-Luc Picard.
Jean-Luc Picard. Patrick
Wesley.
Stewart. Wesley Crusher. Guys, Lieutenant Worf. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This has been the most fun I've had in a while. Appreciate you guys. Austin, I like Transformers now.
We did it. We done did it.
I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, never mind. I don't really care that much.
You're gonna be like, oh, they just announced the special edition of this movie. Gross.
No, probably not. I think I might have hit a turning point with this.
Mm.
I might have. Well, anyway, we'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Good night, everybody.
See you later,
Never forget, Geekvolution superior, other comic book YouTubers inferior.
Keep watching Geekvolution till all are one.
Till all are one. Ba weep, grana weep, mini bon.
Mini bon. I don't know why I said that in the Peter Cullen voice.
Well, you dared to be stupid.
I dared to be stupid. Everything you know is wrong. Okay, good night, everybody.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye, folks.